You up for listening to a bit of music?
Yeah. What you got?
Close your eyes and I'll kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. Remember I'll always be true. And then while I'm away, I'll run home every day. And I'll send all my loving to you. I pretend that I'm kissing the lips I'm missing.
You tried doing that for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That brought it alive. I remember him doing that.
Yeah.
So well, I'll do this.
And did that just happen in the studio, or
Yeah.
this is when you played live? In the studio.
One.
Close your eyes and I'll kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. Remember I'll always be true. And then while I'm away, I'll ride home every day. And I'll send all my loving to you.
It's a difficult part.
Yeah. And nobody would play it. It's just an
Oh.
unusual musical
Yeah.
choice. But then when you get back to the more regular junk,
Yeah.
it sounds amazing,
Yeah.
just from the contrast.
Yeah. No, that was a really good thing that did happen. We all knew we had the freedom to goof around.
Yeah.
That's an example of one that I had the words before the song. We're on a tour bus and nothing much happening. And we're thinking, like, hey, honey, I'll be home. I'll send her my love. And, you know, there was no recording devices, so you had to remember them. But you'd kind of wake up and it'd be there in the morning, so you'd play it again to fix it.
Yeah.
And John would have remembered it anyway. So we realized, you know, we were writing songs that were memorable, not because we wanted them to be memorable,
Yeah.
but because we had to
them.
remember them. You know, there's a very practical reason, really.
What was the music that was played in your house? Did your dad listen to music in the house?
My dad was a pianist, an amateur pianist, so he played our piano.
What
in the
type of
house.
music did he play?
He would play Chicago, Chicago.
Like show tunes.
Yeah. He played at home, so it was lovely hearing someone play piano at home. But his main thing was New Year's Eve, big family party. And he would get on the piano and just play all evening. There was no...
Play and sing to, or just play?
No, he would just play, and then everyone else would sing.
I see.
It was a sing-along. All the ladies, they've got their little drinks. And they're all sitting like in the chairs around the thing. And they're all red, rum, comes pop, pop, pop in love. They're all singing. But he got arthritis in his hands, hence me doing exercises all the time. But he couldn't play the piano. So I kind of took over.
Do you feel like you were graduating in the family, like going from
Yeah.
the kid watching to all of a sudden taking the chair?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
exciting.
Daunting too, because
Yeah.
I didn't know all the songs. But it was great, you know, it was very, very nice atmosphere. And it's funny, I say to people, I always thought everyone had loving families and everyone was very nice to each other. And of course, later I found that's not true.
Yeah.
And some people are very unfortunate. John was very unlucky because he had, his dad left his home when he was 3, and John didn't see him till he was famous. And also John's mum got killed. You know, so this was an eye-opener to me. It was like, wow, I thought everyone lived like we did.
Yeah.
But
It also speaks to the difference in temperaments as grown-ups.
Yeah.
The different experience really changes everything.
that's true, you know, you think about it. Yeah, John,
makes perfect
John had a
sense.
very defensive
He had
way.
a chip on his shoulder, it sounds like.
Which was beautiful.
Yeah.
It's how he got through that childhood. But I was much more open and just thought, oh, everything's great, you know, optimistic. So as a team, that worked.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I would write, it's getting better all the time. And he would go, it couldn't get much worse, which was like the perfect foil for that song, you know. So I loved the way he would always add like a little cynicism to the songs.
Try to see my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on? Why you seeing your way? Run the risk of knowing that I'll always should be gone. We go work it out. We go work it out. Life is very short, and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend.
But thinking back on it is crazy because he wore glasses and I didn't. So if we got into an argument, I would call him Four Eyes. You know, Four Eyes. And he would go, pigeon chest. My chest is not as developed as his or whatever. So, you know, we did all that. But these things obviously bring you together.
Yeah. You probably did everything together in those days.
Yeah, you did, yeah. We spent a lot of time together. Also, we played guitar together, so that any chord John knew, I knew. And if we learned a new chord, I remember George and I walking into the local music shop. It's called Hesse's, Frank Hesse. And there's a guy called Jim Gretty, who was a bit of a jazz player. And he was filling in, working in the shop. But we watched him play once, and he did this. Me and George went, what is that? He goes, I said, well, it's F something. I don't remember. I don't even know what it is to this day. But he was like, wow, show us how you do that. So we got it. So now me and George knew this chord.
Yes.
So we'd show that to John. Look at this, you know.
Yeah.
And so now we all knew this chord. I used it in...
Amazing.
John was at art school by this time, so they had great art parties, and there'd be great girls. John would kind of invite us. We were his little friends.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a little bit embarrassing at that age. So I would wear like a black turtleneck sweater, and we were all trying to be French. We were trying to be, you know, we loved the French artists, particularly the girls. Juliette Gréco. She was like, wow, look at that. Brigitte Bardot, you know, these were our favorite ladies. But I would sit in a corner and think, you know, well, if I wear the black turtleneck and play guitar, then they might think I'm French. And therefore they'd be attracted to me. So I began to go, oh, sure. Hi, baby. You know. And years later, John said, remember that crazy little French song you used to do at the parties? I said, oh, yeah. He said, you should finish that. The other thing was, because I had this Frenchy thing in my mind, Edith Piaf did a record, Milord. Milord.
Je chante les milords qui n'ont pas eu de chance. Regardez-moi, milord, vous ne m'avez jamais vu. Mais vous pleurez, milord, ça je l'aurais jamais cru.
I was kind of going off the back of that, Milord, Michel. And then I had a very good friend, actually the guy who introduced me to John, Ivan. He was married by this time, and his wife, Jan, was a French teacher. I said, oh, Jan, listen, you got to help me. What's a rhyme for Michel? She said, ma belle. I said, what's that mean? She said, my beautiful. I said, great, Michel, ma belle. And then, how do you say these are words that go together well in French? Sont les mots qui vont très bien ensemble. Okay, you better write that one out. But so between her and John reminding me to do the song, I had Michel.
1, 2, 3.
Michel. Michel, ma belle, sont des mots qui vont très bien ensemble, très bien ensemble. I love you, I love you, I love you. That's all I want to say. Until I find a way, I will say the only words I know that you understand. Michel, ma belle, sont des mots qui vont très bien ensemble, très bien ensemble. I need to.
You went in with just
Tell you, man,
the guitar song.
Yeah, you know, that really was, I say, looking back.
Yeah.
I astound myself.
Spur of the moment.
Yeah.
My Michel.
Now you hear, at this point, it slows down a little.
Yeah.
No one could figure that out. It was our attempt to be like the Milord record, which she slows, Milord, but we didn't dare do that. So we just slowed down a little bit. It just sounds like we got it wrong.
Yeah.
You know, we had 1.5 hours to make that track,
Yeah.
which is pretty economical.
Come into the studio, playing it for the guys. Are you already thinking about what else it needs?
No, that's all live in the studio. That's,
Right then.
Yeah. Yeah, we wouldn't, I mean, you'd think we would have got together and worked out those harmonies.
Yeah.
Of course, George Martin, our producer, was very helpful with that too. George would sort of say, okay, Paul, your line is, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, George, yours is, and George would do, or whatever. There'd be strange little lines or unrelated, but you just had to remember them.
Yeah.
Or else the grown-up would tell you off.
Wow. Were there any inspirations like other bands that you would listen to for harmonies besides the Everly Brothers?
Beach Boys, I think, was a big influence on the harmony. I think he'd heard one of our albums and thought, I've got to do better, you know. And that was Pet Sounds, which I loved. It was like still one of my big albums, you know. It was so atmospheric and different.
Yes.
And yet it was the Beach Boys still, you know.
Yeah.
And we heard Pet Sounds and thought, right, we've got to do something better than that.
Yeah.
So we did Sgt. Pepper.
It was 20 years ago today. Sgt. Pepper told the band to play. They'd be going in and out of style, but they're guaranteed to raise a smile. So may I introduce to you the acting group for all these years, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. With Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, we hope you will enjoy the show. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, sit back and let the evening go. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It's wonderful to be here, it's certainly a thrill. You're such a lovely audience, we'd like to take you home with us, we'd love to take you home. I don't really want to stop the show, but I thought you might like to know that the singer's gonna sing a song, and he wants you all to sing along. So we'll introduce to you the
would you think if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song, and I'll try not to sing out of key. Oh, I get by with a little help from my friends. I get high with a little help from my friends. I'm gonna try with a little help from my friends. What do I do when my love is away?
Does it worry to be alone?
How do I feel at the end of the day?
Are you sad because you're on your own?
No, I get by with a little help from my friends. I get high with a little help from my friends. Gonna try with a little help from my friends.
Do you need anybody?
I need somebody to love.
Could it be anybody?
I want somebody to love.
Would you believe in a love at first sight?
Yes, I'm certain that it happens all the time.
What do you see when you turn out the lights?
I can't tell you, but I know it's mine. Oh, I get by with a little help from my friends. I get
Peppers. Was that the first one that you took an extended time to make?
Yeah, I think we'd sort of taken 6 months period in which to do it. And the musical papers were starting to say, oh, what's happened to the Beatles? They've dried up. But we're busily working away in Abbey Road, ting, ting, like little Snow White's elves, ting, ting, ting.
And you stopped touring, so that
Yeah,
gave you
and
more
also
time,
the songs were getting more complicated. But it was very exciting knowing we were doing Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah. There's stories of people driving through Laurel Canyon that weekend, and anywhere you drove, all you heard was the Sgt. Pepper album coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that weekend was like a hot weekend, summer, and then our record just comes. So everyone's got it for Friday night, they got it for Saturday, and they're all getting stoned and getting drunk and everything to it. And on Sunday, Jimi Hendrix was doing a concert. So Jimmy came on and he opens with Sgt. Pepper. He'd learned it. It was only 2 days before.
Hey, don't really want to start the show, but I think it might be nice to know. We gotta say we're gonna sing a song, and then what's gonna join along. So let us just
He did a great version of it, really wacky, loud, and beautiful. He's using his vibrator arm, his Bigsby arm, and he's going, "Go!" You notice how that put you out of tune.
Yeah.
So he starts kind of tuning up a little bit. And the guitarists in the audience go, "There's no way back, Jim. You know, you're going to have to just stand there and tune it.
Yeah.
Even though it's your second number.
Yeah.
You can't just crack on."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he leans in on the mic and says, "Is Eric out there?" Looking for Eric Clapton.
To tune it for him?
Yeah. Eric's out there, but Eric's hiding. He doesn't want to be seen in the audience. "Will you tune this for me, man?"
So funny.
Yeah. It was a big release.
Your first gatefold as well.
Yeah.
It had the gatefold with the big picture in the center, and I remember it had cutouts.
It had little
Had a
cutouts
lot
and
of
everything,
stuff.
yeah. And the thing is, you know, the sort of thing I was thinking that time, and I knew the others thought similarly, was that when we'd been in Liverpool and you'd bought an album, it was a huge event, actually buying a vinyl album. Because you were, number one, you had to save up lots of money to get it. Then I had a half-hour bus ride, so you'd take it out of its brown paper bag and you'd study it.
Yeah.
On the way home, and you'd read every little liner note and every little photo. So we wanted to do something that was really value for money.
Yeah.
And that if you're on that bus ride, you'd need a few bus rides to check this thing out. When we were kids, I used to get on the bus, and the next stop, George would get on. We were going to the same school. It's called the Liverpool Institute High School for Boys, where there were 1,000 boys. That was it, no girls. Anyway, on one of these journeys, there was a free seat next to me, and he sat down there, and we started talking. And we talked about what we loved, music and guitars. George was very into guitars.
If you were guessing, how many other kids on the bus cared about music?
I would guess one if you were lucky.
So you felt a connection to him right away just
Yeah.
because you had guitar in common,
We both
and it
used
was
to-
rare.
It's quite rare, yeah. So we got to know each other really well. And we used to hitchhike, and the guy would give you a lift. It was great, great. So you'd get to him and he'd say, well, I can't go any further than this. I now go over here. So he'd drop us. And what we'd do is we'd go to a little shop and we would buy a tin of rice pudding. It's called ambrosia. And I, very resourcefully, had brought along with me a little camping stove.
Wow.
So we're at the side of the road, trying to hitchhike. We've got this little open can.
Wow.
We weren't Beatles, we weren't anything, but if you look back, it's quite amazing. See,
like you
there's
lived-
two of the
you were
Beatles
like-
eating
yeah,
rice cream.
On the side of the
Really,
road,
on the side of the
hitchhiking.
road, yeah. And then we go to the pictures, we go to the cinema together often. That was sort of the great, entertainment. And there used to be an advert for furniture, and it was Link Furniture. And so the advert said, thinking of linking? So me and George was like that, thinking of linking. I mean, if that was a Buddy Holly song, it would be kind of a good one. So we kind of wrote this. Well, I've been thinking of linking my love with you. Thinking of linking our love so true. Thinking of linking can only be done by two.
Fantastic.
So those little things, and we only remember that when we were doing the Beatles anthology. George said to me, do you remember this? What? I was thinking of Lincoln. Yeah. So, those things, I say, all of that brought you together. And then I did the whole sort of thing with John, similar songs and hitchhiking and all of that. So by the time we came to be a recording group, I think this is why we could so quickly just put together a lick, and that made it more joyful.
1, 2, 3, 4.
There's another song here.
Yeah.
Well, no, baby, like she's got that. Yeah, you got it, yeah. Oh.
Still my guitar gently
Fascinating.
Yeah.
No, it's just amazing.
That's interesting you bring that up. I was not conscious of that till we listen to it now. I hear that tone on it, and it's like, wow.
If you had a studio musician come in, the best musician in the world, to play on your new song, he would not play that.
We'll never do that.
No, because it's not.
He'd be much more sensible.
It's just fascinating to see it come together. You guys were essentially blending styles, but not by mixing two genres, but really by mixing two feels.
Yeah.
Like when the Beatles played a reggae-influenced number, it doesn't sound like reggae, it sounds like the Beatles.
Yeah, yeah.
So it becomes something new.
Yeah, that's, I think that's a nice fact of music, is even though you're inspired by something, it's going to sound like you.
Charlie